Shootings at several massage parlors and spas in and around the Atlanta area are causing outrage. 6 of the dead are women of Asian descent.
Police say the attacks don't appear to be racially motivated, but there is skepticism about that within the Asian American community here in Central Texas. 25 News reporter Darrell Baker leads us off.
Millions across the nation are raising their voices, calling for an end to violence and racism against Asian Americans after shootings at 3 spas near Atlanta left 8 dead, 6 of them women of Asian descent.
Definitely made me sick to my stomach initially, just personally. But I also became concerned as a small business owner.
Jia Chen, co-owner of Waco Cha, says she and her husband hear of acts of racism much closer to home in Central Texas.
Just even being called names on the side of the road, or even just when they're walking around, being told to go back to their own country.
Local experts say there's been a spike in hate crimes, specifically towards Asians, over the past year, largely due to the pandemic. And most of the victims are women.
People across the political spectrum have economic and social issues with China, and they have come to sometimes act out on Chinese individuals or people who they perceive to be Chinese individuals.
Over the last year, there were nearly 3,800 hate incidents reported against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the U.S., according to Stop AAPI Hate. Experts say there are several factors, including news about the China Communist Party and negative connotations toward Asian and immigrants from leaders.
One of the biggest issues, especially something like this, is going to be post-traumatic stress. And so my understanding is there were survivors, and certainly there were folks there that witnessed the event, and their loved ones that lost someone.
Atlanta police officers are still not clear whether the shooting spree is a hate crime. Chin says Waco Cha will be donating a portion of their profits this week to Hate is a Virus, a nonprofit community that works with the AAPI and other nonprofits to stand for equality and justice. In Killeen, Darrell Baker, 25 News.
As Darrell just mentioned, Stop AAPI Hate got over 3,000 complaints from all 50 states in the last year. Among those, 42% of the complainants identified as Chinese, 15% are Korean. More than a third of the incidents took place in businesses.
The suspect in the killing spree that left 8 people dead at 3 different spas in the Atlanta area Tuesday says he felt tortured by sexual addiction. 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long would go frequently to massage parlors for sex, according to his former roommate at a rehab facility where Long sought treatment for sex addiction. Police say Long is claiming the killings were not racially motivated.
It's difficult to ignore the fact that many of the victims were Asian.
Not to mention the fact that the hate crime statute says gender as well as race. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer that you should be talking about the fact that this is likely a hate crime.
Long is now behind bars. Officials say Long had been recently kicked out of his house for spending hours on end watching pornography and purchased his gun legally earlier this week. A Texas restaurant owner is speaking out after his noodle shop was vandalized with racist graffiti. The owner spoke out against Governor Abbott's elimination of the statewide mask mandate. Since he made those comments, he says he has received death threats on social media. Then over the weekend, someone vandalized his restaurant.
To have something hit so close to home and such a direct message, you know, and over what? Something senseless, over someone's opinion, someone's belief. I mean, last I checked, you know, we lived in a country where we had the freedom of speech.
The owner says he will push for the attack on his business to be investigated as a hate crime.
We've all heard the phrase food desert. No market, no groceries for the north side of Killeen. That's been the reality for a few years now, but it is a reality that could soon be changing. 25 News reporter Adam Schindler has the story.
In September of 2019, H-E-B announced it was closing their downtown Killeen location, leaving many people with nearly no options for groceries.
Seniors, disabled veterans, all of us have to travel so far to get fresh vegetables and meats and things that we need, especially medication.
Relief and the prospect of a new grocery store downtown could be right around the corner since the city was able to bring a grocer and developer together.
We happen to be able to identify a grocer supplier that was interested in the market, and we're able to put the two together and they're working on numbers right now.
People in the community are excited to hear that there just might be a new grocery store coming to their side of town.
So in addition, in this area, HEB or whatever that's compatible to HEB I think would be very extremely needed.
No official deal has been made yet, but that could be coming very soon.
We should be at the point where we can develop a performance agreement in a month or so, maybe sooner.
Officials are confident that the field on the corner of 38th and Rancier will become a 60,000 square foot grocery store with outlying retail. In Killeen, Adam Schindler, 25 News.
Adam, thanks. Now, about 23.5 million people across the country live in so-called food deserts. Nearly half of them are also low income. Approximately 2 million people live in low-income rural areas that are more than 10 miles from any kind of market. There's now a $400 million federal investment from the government, which will go toward providing tax breaks for markets that open in these food deserts. The U.S. Senate is expected to pass an extension that gives small businesses more time to apply for PPP loans. The new deadline, May 31st, and that gives an extra 30 days to process applications as well.
The first batch of stimulus payments has gone out. About 90 million payments have been dispersed so far. The first group to get that money includes people who provided direct deposit information to the IRS on recent tax returns or on the IRS website. About 150,000 paper checks have also been mailed out. In all, about $242 billion have been paid. Now, you may get an extra month to pay your dues to Uncle Sam this year. The IRS plans to delay the tax filing deadline until mid-May. The government wants to give Americans more time because the pandemic made taxes more complicated for some people. But keep in mind, even if the IRS gives you more time, state taxes in most cases are still due by April 15th. Texas AG Ken Paxton suing Griddy Energy under the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act for allegedly gouging customers during the winter storms. Consumers were shocked to see energy bills of several $1,000s for just a few days of service. Griddy filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on Monday with over $29 million owed to ERCOT. The Attorney General's action is designed to help 24,000 Texans who couldn't pay the high energy bills. And now let's get a first check of our weather with Chief Meteorologist Matt Hines. Matt?
And it is still windy out there, Naya, for tonight as the wind just won't calm down. Usually after sunset, things start to die off, but our storm system is so powerful, it's still producing winds of 15 to 25 miles per hour. And then you add the gusts, we're still gusting close to 30 in Waco, 35 miles per hour in Killeen, 31 in Hillsborough, 35 in Mejia. So it is still quite a breezy night across central Texas, and it will likely stay that way until about midnight, and then things will slowly start to come down. But we are starting to drag in cooler air. 40s already showing up from Hillsborough, Meridian back to Hamilton, lower 50s, Waco, Gatesville, down through Killeen and Temple between 50 and 52 degrees, and that chillier air will continue to settle on in later on tonight. So your bus stop forecast, if you're not on spring break, temperature starting off close to 40 in the morning. Wind chills will be in the 30s. So yes, it's time to get the jackets back out. But by tomorrow afternoon, it should be decent. Highs will be into the mid 60s, breezy conditions across the area. And we will continue to see highs in the 60s, lows in the 40s for the next several days. I'll tell you how long that lasts coming up.
All right, thanks, Matt. Texas AG Ken Paxton, along with attorneys general from 19 other states, are suing the Biden administration for revoking the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline. The group is arguing the president cannot simply change energy policy already set by Congress. On his first day in office, Biden revoked the permit for a pipeline that was to transport more than 800,000 barrels of oil a day from Alberta down to the Texas Gulf. Today, Governor Abbott blaming the Biden administration for the immigration crisis. He's calling the sharp increase of minors arriving at the Texas border alone a humanitarian crisis.
These sites are a direct result of President Biden's reckless open border policies that are causing a surge in border crossings and cartel activity. The administration has yet to provide answers that Texans deserve.
Now, Abbott says the state government will ramp up efforts to fight human traffickers at the border. The governor is asking the feds to give Texas DPS agents access to talk to migrant children so they can try to identify those human traffickers.
Around 1 of every 10 undocumented migrants that officials encountered in February was an unaccompanied minor. That's a 62% increase from January. The Biden administration is holding more than 4,200 teens and children. By law, the DHHS should take custody of minors within 72 hours, but the average time that minors have been held is now 120 hours. A group of Republican senators is asking the government to review President Biden's suspension of border wall construction. The letter points out Biden stopped border wall construction and froze congressional funds appropriated to build it in January. It goes on to blame those actions for the current influx of migrants and unaccompanied minors crossing the U.S.-Mexico border.
A ton of money now being set aside to help make schools safer. Coming up, how much is being allocated to help test students and teachers across the country. And once the pandemic ends, a certain vaccine might not be so free anymore. We'll explain.
More than a dozen states are reporting a rise in coronavirus cases. 14 states reporting double-digit increases in cases this week compared to last week. Nationwide, the number of new cases continues to decline. The CDC projects 554,000 could die from the virus by April 10th. Now, we want to go ahead and take a look at some of the numbers here in Texas. So let's head on over to Sydney Eisenberg with the latest. Sydney.
Naya, here in Texas, we are seeing some positive signs. COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are all on the decline. Experts credit that to vaccination efforts and those mitigation efforts that we've been practicing since the beginning of this pandemic. Now, as of today, roughly 2.9 million Texans are considered fully vaccinated. We have about 5.5 million Texans who have at least received one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. If we take a look at how many people received at least one dose today, we are at 91,000, close to 92,000, and 31,000 Texans were moved over into the fully vaccinated category. But what about Central Texas? Let's go ahead and switch our maps and take a closer look. So in Central Texas, about 182,000 have received at least one dose, with 97,000 considered fully vaccinated. If we take a look at just today, that number is about 3,800 receiving that first dose, with 1,000 receiving the full vaccination approval. In McLennan County, they administered about 744 first doses. Down I-35 in Bell County, we're seeing almost 400 first doses. And if we click over to Coryell County, they're seeing about 55 first doses. Bosque County at about 46 first doses. Limestone County at about 67, and Falls County at about 24 doses. Now, with this expansion in eligibility, like we saw on Monday with those 50 and over being able to now get vaccinated, it's very important that you go get on a wait list if you would like to be vaccinated.
Sydney, thank you. The Department of Health and Human Services is expanding COVID-19 testing in schools. The agency says it will give $10 billion to states to help schools test teachers, students, and staff exposed to the virus. The funds are from the COVID relief bill. Dr. Anthony Fauci says many students can get vaccinated very soon.
For high school students, it looks like they will be available to get vaccinated in the beginning of the fall, very likely for the fall term. With regard to children, we're doing an age de-escalation study in elementary school children. We anticipate we'll have enough data to be able to vaccinate these younger children by the first quarter of 2022.
President Biden's goal is to reopen a majority of schools in the U.S. for in-person learning within his first 100 days in office. Here in Texas public schools, over 1,800 students tested positive last week. That number is much fewer for staff. Only 637 tested positive. Overall, though, there are more than 126,000 positive student cases across Texas public schools.
Right now, you can get the COVID-19 vaccine for free, but once the pandemic ends, that could certainly change. A Pfizer executive hinting at the possibility of raising the price down the road. No word on exactly what the company might charge. Pfizer signed a nearly $2 billion agreement with the government back in July to do about 100 million doses. That order doubled in December. FEMA is going to be reimbursing families of COVID victims for funeral expenses. The agency has hit $2 billion for it. The funds are for funeral expenses between January 20th and December 31st of 2020. So last year, FEMA says it's still setting up a funeral assistance program. Today is St. Paddy's Day, and people from all over are out celebrating the luck of the Irish. But you might be shocked to find out just how much folks spend on this day That answer coming up next.
There was a lot of dust in the wind today here across central Texas, as we did have that blowing right off the West Texas Caprock and right into our area. So that was the haze that you saw across our region today. And we still have the wind this evening, still breezy out there. Look at this on our Extra Cool Eagle Eye Colleen, northwest winds 22 miles per hour, still gusting over 30, 52 degrees. So it's cooling off readily, and the dew point's down to 35. That means drier air is moving in. This time last night, that dew point was sitting in the 60s. So we are starting to bring in that dry air on that northwest wind. That means we're dry for the rest of the week, and you can see all that dry air moving across Texas right now as our storm system that brought us all the wind continues to depart here across Oklahoma into parts of Arkansas. Severe weather event still going on across Alabama. Looks like Mississippi starting to clear out. That will pose another threat of significant severe weather across Georgia and parts of the Carolinas as we head into tomorrow. But again, that's moving away as that storm system lives out. We had blizzard conditions this morning. Then we had the windy conditions here in our area, and of course the stormy weather over to the east. So a classic spring March storm crossing the southern plains. As we check out our winds for tonight, by midnight going into 7 o'clock in the morning, 10 to 20 mile per hour winds. You're like, oh, okay, that's at least lighter. Well, yeah, but temperature's going to be down to low 40s in the morning. So it's going to feel like the 30s when you wake up. So make sure you have the jackets ready to go. Then as we get into the afternoon hours, look at that, 15 to 25 mile per hour winds. We just can't shake that wind here in the month of March, and it'll probably still be blowing as we make our way into our Friday as well. 10 to 20 mile per hour winds, and then finally by Friday night, that will start to come down into the 5 to 15 mile per hour range, and Saturday should bring lighter winds to the area. So tonight, those temperatures will be dipping down again into the lower 40s. It's going to be chilly out there when you wake up in the morning. Normal low is 48 degrees, so we're actually going to be below normal for our lows and our highs, which is supposed to be right around 70 this time of year. Those highs will be into the low to mid 60s as we make our way into tomorrow. And looking at your forecast, yep, more wind. 66 on Thursday, 65 on Friday. Lows at night getting down into the upper 30s and lower 40s. So it's still a little chilly out there from time to time. Spring officially starts on Saturday. 67 degrees for a high, 70 on Sunday. Back to the 60s Monday. More clouds, maybe a chance for a few scattered showers and thunderstorms. Right now, the severe weather threat's not all that high as we move into next week. Of course, that can always change. We are in severe weather season, so we'll continue to track that closely for you. More 70s on the